Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai.
I'm almost done.
You interrupt a man in prayer to say nothing. Oh. Why should I trust you with this?
This is all natural.
Mashallah.
Documentary.
Fiction. No editing, please.
Okay, so my question is, if I'm an atheist, should I tell my aging religious mother that God doesn't exist and that there is no heaven?
I doubt that will bring her comfort.
So, no?
No. By that age, you leave her alone. You don't disrupt her worldview. To what end? Is she going to change the world for the better? Or will she just suffer anguish and confusion if you tell her this? That should be the measure.
What about children?
I would teach children about many religions. Let us compare mythologies.
So, you would lie to the elderly believers, and to the children you would take away their afterlife and heaven and hell.
Humans tell stories. Imagine if we grew up believing only in the things that we could reasonably prove or verify to some degree, so that our beliefs are plausible.
But you've got belief here. Belief can be...
Yes, beyond belief. Humans used to describe diseases and forces of nature as punishments from God. Many thought the world was flat and everything revolved around us. Then as we understood more about the world, we no longer believed those supernatural stories. I believe that when we die, our individual consciousness is gone. Traces of it may remain in the energy and memories of others, and perhaps there's something we do not know about. But I cannot name it, nor can I describe it beyond saying, I sense a connectedness in all things, and forces that operate that I cannot fully understand with present-day physics. That may change. Saying anything more than this is a product of our imaginations and creativity. Stories. People invented gods and cosmologies as stories to explain what they did not know. And to control people too, right? They invent the soul with words. You have a soul, a part of you that lives forever. And if you don't do this and that and behave, your soul is going to suffer forever and ever. However, of course, there is no evidence of these souls. But I must confess, I have believed some of these things and sometimes wish I still could. And it is very hard to let go of your beliefs that your parents and their cultural circles have imparted to you. You risk being an outcast, a pariah, a traitor. We dutifully take on the religion of our parents just because we're born into it.
So, what exactly would you tell kids?
I would give them enough information so by the time they leave high school, they would have a rough idea of how the world came to be. So they couldn't be fooled by people. We start with the story of evolution. The same sciences that create doctors and medicines and machines to operate on us and heal us. These same sciences tell us how the universe evolved. We would talk about how we, Homo sapiens, evolved in Africa. We created the beginnings of language and religion there, at least by 70,000 years ago. And around 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens left Africa. Small groups left that would go on to populate the world with Homo sapiens. They set out for better opportunities and survival. A world of migrants. And in those groups that stayed in Africa and the small groups that left, we have the ancestors of all the living humans today. So these early migrants traveled. They were hunter-gatherers, and then they figured out how to grow crops and domesticate animals. People find a spot to settle down and, stay, perhaps hundreds of years, maybe thousands. You get rooted, and the population grows. You develop a system of ownership, social protection and cohesion, laws, culture, politics. There is limited record keeping, limited writing or none. There is an oral tradition. Stories are told about the lake or the river, the dangerous areas, how to grow crops, about their wars with neighboring tribes, about heroes, about the past of the tribe. They talk about their ancestors. Those outside of Africa, they don't know they came from Africa. And no humans knew that they evolved from earlier forms of life. So they think perhaps they've always been here, or nearly always. Perhaps they have a story about an exodus from another homeland. These humans also had a growing spiritual life. They might think that everything around them has some breath of life or spirit in it. They might focus on their ancestors, perhaps. They have stories about these ancestors. They start to praise them. Over decades and centuries, they worship them, deify them. They might make an early known ancestor as the father of the tribe, or perhaps a godlike figure. They look up into the sky at night and wonder at the vast sky of unknown light, spherical bodies in orbits. They wonder, how did we get here? Who created everything we see around us and in the sky and beyond? So they made up stories to explain what they did not know and did not understand. Their wonder, their imagination, and their creativity created religion and culture. The stories were passed down orally, then at some point they were written down. And some people, some men usually, men who had power, decided that these would be the official stories, and perhaps other stories would be tossed out. They made revisions to suit their purposes, and they sometimes polished up the wording. Stories about our tribe, or our religion, or our state, how we got here, who created everything, our beliefs, our history, our wars and peace, the laws we should or must follow, the punishments we might face if we don't follow. Religion did help restrain selfishness and violence, and encouraged group cooperation and belief in the rules. And it helps satisfy our amazing consciousness, which, preciously, could not often believe in its own destruction. How could I permanently die and disappear? So we imagined and conceived of these concepts, words, verses, to explain what we do not know, to make us feel better, to get us through the hard times, to bind us together, to help us feel better about death, to give us a reward for the difficulties of this material existence, and to promise us a beautiful celestial existence with something bigger beyond us. And in the gap between what we know and what is unknowable, we write our stories, the poetry of our existence, our myths, our holy books, our stories. Peace, Shanti, Salam, Shalom, La Paix, Hepeng, Paz, Mia, etc.